Welcome to the Blue and Gold Weekly Review. I'm your host, Derek Schultz, and it feels like we're almost on repeat. Week after week, another win for the Irish. They're now 6-0 following a thrilling 20-13 overtime win over Stanford. Of course, we were there, and we've got all the highlights for you coming up in this webisode of the Blue and Gold Weekly Review on City 360 TV. Also, a one-on-one with Nix afterwards. He was part of the big stop at the very end of the game, keeping Stefan Taylor out of the end zone and preserving the Irish win. The Notre Dame defense has spent the last 4 games without yielding an opposing offense to get into the end zone and get a touchdown. We'll talk about that with Justine Ward, our executive producer and sideline reporter. Her brother plays for Stanford. Stanford fullback Lee Ward. And Justine, of course, a Notre Dame alum herself, so a bit of a split allegiance for her last week. We'll recap the game with Justine coming up here in a little bit. Also, we've got all the highlights. We've got the first BCS standings out of the year. We'll tell you where Notre Dame ranks, and we'll look forward to next week's home game against the Cougars of BYU. That's all next in a jam-packed edition of the Blue and Gold Weekly Review on City 360 TV. Welcome back to the Blue and Gold Weekly Review on City 360 TV. It was a rainy and overcast afternoon at Notre Dame Stadium, but the rains didn't dampen the spirits of the Irish fan, the crowd, or any of the members of the Notre Dame band. Let's take you out to the sights and sounds from Notre Dame and Stanford. Let's go to the highlights between the Irish and the Cardinal. Notre Dame was able to get on the board first to make the score 3-0 with a field goal, but Stanford came right back and took the lead on the Irish 7-3 on Everett Golson's fumble in the end zone. It was a defensive struggle for the rest of the second half, but then into overtime is when things really got interesting. Tommy Rees came in for an injured Everett Golson. He throws a touchdown pass here to TJ Jones to give the Irish the lead 20-13. And the defense takes over from there, a goal line stand as they stop Stefan Taylor at the goal line to preserve the 20-13 win. The referees reviewed the call and decided to leave the call as it stood on the field, not in the end zone. A win for the Irish, 20-13 over Stanford to break a 3-game losing skid. When we come back on the Blue and Gold Weekly Review, we'll have our hit of the week, our player of the week, also a one-on-one interview with Nix, and we'll talk to sideline reporter and executive producer Justine Ward. This is the Blue and Gold Weekly Review on City 360 TV. Welcome back to the Blue and Gold Weekly Review on City 360 TV. We're now joined on the phone lines by our executive producer and reporter, Justine Ward. And Justine, we really appreciate you joining us. What did you think of that great atmosphere between Notre Dame and Stanford up in South Bend?
Thanks, Derek, for having me. Well, despite the rain, I think it was one of the best Notre Dame games I've seen in a long time. Definitely the best matchup we've seen this season. And, being on campus again as a Notre Dame alum, I graduated last year. My dad, also a Notre Dame alum, but it was, a tricky weekend for us because my brother does play for Stanford, and we were in the Stanford player section, so we were rooting for him and his team, but, we also wanted Notre Dame to do well. So walking around campus in Stanford colors for the first time was a little weird. The entire time we're like, we're Notre Dame fans, I promise, we're Notre Dame alums. But no, the atmosphere was amazing. And, despite the rain, I think most of the fans stayed throughout the entire game. And what an incredible ending with going into overtime and everything else. And definitely the best Notre Dame game I've seen thus far in this season.
In your 4 years at Notre Dame plus this year, does that rank right up there with the most exciting finishes that you've seen as an Irish football fan?
Well, Derek, for Notre Dame games, for me at least, I think this is the #1 finish we've seen in a long time. Again, like I said, I think this is the best, closest matchup we've seen all season long. And to go into overtime, and especially against another team that I also want to do well. For me, as a fan of both Notre Dame and Stanford, you couldn't have a much better ending than that, and now Notre Dame is 6-0, and definitely, hopefully, we'll keep on that track.
A lot of people asking nationally, are Notre Dame for real? Are the Irish for real? What's your opinion of that?
Oh, I certainly think they for real. They're continuing to move up in the rankings, and I think we might have a national championship, or at least be able to go to the national championship. And I think this is the first time, I have the confidence to say this, and I think this is the first time we've actually have a chance of maybe making it there in a long time.
That's Justine Ward. You can follow her on Twitter at Justine B. Ward, our executive producer and reporter on City 360 TV. Justine, we really appreciate it. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Derek.
Coming up next, our one-on-one with Nix from the Notre Dame press room, plus our Hit of the Week and Player of the Week when the Blue and Gold Weekly Review continues. Welcome back. The Blue and Gold Weekly Review continues here on City 360 TV. I'm your host, Derek Schultz. Time for our Hit of the Week and our Player of the Week. The Hit of the Week brought to you by the Sports Chronicle, and it was several players involved in this, but Nix, as well as Zeke Mata, Matthias Farley as well, all with big plays to help preserve the Notre Dame victory. That defense doing a wonderful job in the 20-13 win. And our Player of the Week, how about super sub Tommy Rees? He comes in relief of Everett Golson, throws this touchdown pass, the game winner to T.J. Jones. And Tommy Rees is our Player of the Week, brought to you by the Ivy Quad in South Bend. Beautiful condos up there right next to Notre Dame's campus. So if you haven't already, be sure to check those out. We really appreciate them sponsoring the show. Had a chance to catch up with the big man, Nix, after Notre Dame's big win over Stanford. He was part of that goal line stand at the very end of the game, and we talked to him one-on-one from the Notre Dame press room right now.
We're with Notre Dame defensive tackle Nix. First off, Louis, congratulations on the victory.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Being a defensive tackle like you are, the last two plays, they go right up the middle, right at the teeth of the defense, right at you. Did you know what was coming both times?
I expected them to try to pound it in there. They're Stanford, so what do you expect? They want to just get it in, and that's what they did all game. And they came at us, and we came out with the victory, so I'm happy.
This was the first time that you guys trailed all season. Is this a learning experience now to know how to rally and come back like that?
You can call it a learning experience. It's it shows us we got to keep fighting through adversity. We're down 10-3. It's almost the end of the game. We could win, we couldn't. So we just thought about it and said, let's keep fighting. And we win overtime. Got a goal line stop for the one, we win the game. So yeah, just keep fighting through adversity when it hits.
As a unit, you guys still haven't given up a defensive touchdown since the Purdue game. Is that something you're cognizant of? Is that something that you guys talk about?
We don't talk about it much. We just try our best not to let teams put up too many points, have too many big plays. I think a lot of people see we don't let that happen much. We just try our best to be a better defense every game. We want to be better than the week before, and that's what we're trying to do.
You guys in the front seven get a lot of love, and rightfully so. But the secondary, young secondary, you have Lowe go down, you have Jamoris go down. Just talk a little bit about the impact that they've made on the team this year, just in the defensive team.
Like I said, when adversity hits, you got to learn from it, and you got to, attack it. And that's what our guys do. Matthias Farley came in, a lot of young freshmen come in, like Elijah Schumann and Bennett Jackson. He came in, and those guys, they were young, and people say they're still suspect, but they play their butts off. I almost said they were, but they play their butts off, and they get the job done for us. So I'm happy.
Big game for the big guy, Nix. Notre Dame victorious over Stanford. This is City 360 TV.
Welcome back for a final time to the Blue and Gold Weekly Review on City 360 TV. I'm your host, Derek Schultz. It's time now for our Facebook and Twitter shout-outs. You can find us, of course, Twitter at City 360 TV and Facebook.com/City 360 TV. Thanks to our intern for handing these to me. R. Manada, MNADA on Twitter. Also Steve_ND fan and Chi-Town for the win. I really like that handle. Follow all of them via Twitter and our Facebook. Thank yous all the way from Italy, Luciano Marchini. Really appreciate him following along from across the sea. Also in Idaho, which might as well be another country, Nate Irish Hansen for checking us out on Facebook. We really appreciate all of you guys supporting and following and watching, of course, the Blue and Gold Weekly Review on City 360 TV. BYU is the opponent next week. Our City 360 TV team will be on the sidelines in South Bend, and we'll catch all of the highlights from the Irish and Cougars on the next webisode of the Blue and Gold Weekly Review. Until then, I'm Derek Schultz. Thanks for joining us here on City 360 TV. Go Irish!